working with Anthony, and what's impressed you about him as a coach from the sort of the other coaches you've worked with?
Yeah, I think obviously talking to Shane Flanagan at the back end of last year. Obviously, Shane was moving to the Dragons, and I was heading to the Seagulls. So he spoke to me a lot about Seibs. He had a great rapport with him. He's extremely organised, and got great detail in his program. And the one thing that I've really enjoyed with Seibs is just how conversational he's been, how trusting he's been with his coaches. This myself, Stephen Hales, Jim Dimmick, and one of his sort of head analysts there in Michael Cool, and yeah, it's really conversational. He certainly gets our input, and particularly when we get on the field, he gives us great trust as coaches, and his rapport with the players is something that I've learned a lot from. As you mentioned, I've worked with a lot of coaches, and you take little bits and pieces from all of them, and certainly his relationship with the senior players there in Tom Trebojevic, Daly Cherry Evans in particular, the captain, and Jake Trebojevic. He certainly has a lot of conversation with them throughout the week in terms of how the preparation looks like, and also the style of play that we're looking at week to week. So yeah, he's got a really good calming way, I suppose, in terms of communicating with his players, and a real trusting mentality in his coaches as well, which I think allows everyone in the organisation to grow.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, I think Michael Carianis spoke on NL 360 last night that the club's looking to offer him an extension at the end of the season. From what you've seen, is he the man to take Manly forward into the sort of next phase?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's I saw some comments as well from Daly Cherry Evans. Obviously I wasn't there last year in Seibs' first year, but just the continual improvement under Anthony Seibold and where they're at this season, certainly been as rewarding as it is, to be part of the finals. The season certainly had its challenges at different stages. Obviously, the trip to Vegas was new for everyone, and I thought that Seibs in particular was very thorough and organised with all the administration staff to make that as easy as possible for the players, not only to get there and play well, but in particular, the couple of weeks after it, we had a tough period after that. In particular, playing the Roosters, who I know have been in Vegas as well, but one of the elite sides in the competition, only sort of 2 weeks later. So that period afterwards was a new challenge for everyone, given the travel and just how taxing that was. And then having Origin this year, where both captains of the states were from our club, and so their involvement is increased dramatically. They're not just obviously one of the players, the commitments that come and the responsibility that comes and the mental drain, I suppose, that comes with being a captain of your state. Whilst it was a great reward for our boys, certainly, no doubt that was a taxing period. Even someone like Amoli Olakawatu, who had his first Origin series, and Molly was away from our side, and he's, as you've seen the last couple of weeks, he's such an enormous part of what we do. To have him away and out of our system for, 6 weeks, certainly was, another challenge for the side. But the way that Seibs was able to navigate the full squad through that period was very impressive. And now, obviously, after losing Tom mid-season, for that 6-week period, his trust, in the squad to alleviate and bring guys in, like we've seen with particularly Lehigh Hopewadi. We've seen Jamie Humphreys. We've seen Clayton Fualalo. So we've had a few debutants this season as well come through, and then to get to the back end of the year, just talking to Daly yesterday at training, he just said how good he feels at this time of the year and how well the staff have been able to get him through the back end of the year. So, they're the things that Seibs does that has got the squad to where it is currently. And we've got a real opportunity in front of us on Saturday night against the Sydney Roosters side that's going to be hard to beat.
Yeah, definitely. And looking at Anthony's career as a whole, I think he made a preliminary final in his first year at South, and
Yeah.
he obviously made the finals of first year in Brisbane, and then we all know what happened in the third year, the second year there, and there was a lot of challenges inside and outside his control. But now he's made a third final series with Manly, so he's certainly got a track record of making the finals. What does that say about sort of that period in Brisbane? Do you think? Do you think maybe the challenges there from the youth policy that they had going, perhaps sort of overshadowed and maybe took away from his coaching ability?
Um, yeah, look, I mean, it's hard to comment on that period at Brisbane because I obviously wasn't there, with Soups, but um, just seeing how well rounded he is, and as a player, and the coaching game has incredible highs and lows, and I think speaking from a player's perspective, you learn so much when things are going well, about your footy side and your teammates, but you also learn so much when you go through those tough periods, particularly about yourself. And just talking to Subes, you're right. He's had a South Sydney side that was filtered with so much experience and world class players, and then to go to Brisbane, and as you said, he had so much talent, coming through, and youth in that Brisbane side, and then obviously to have those ups and downs, I suppose, as a head coach early on with the highs of South Sydney, and then those tough periods at Brisbane, to then step away, and go and spend some time, working in English rugby, and then he also spent some time with Adam O'Brien up at the Newcastle Knights. It's a real chance, I suppose, to step back and look at his philosophies, look at his model, just have a real good look at what worked for him, I suppose, and what didn't. And as I said, it's been really enjoyable working under him at Manly, and I think he's done a fantastic job there, and it's certainly great to see that the club are looking at keeping him in that position for sure, because he's done a good job. It's not easy to make finals, and it's not easy to get them there, and to see the way that Manly played in particular, in that final against the Bulldogs was highly impressive, to be able to stay in the fight for so long while it was really challenging and tough. The Bulldogs, were at their absolute best, and that shows that there's a real good connection in the group. So, he's done a very good job.
And obviously, I think the saying goes, "The best coaches are the best recruiters." He brought in Luke Brooks and Tommy Talau this year, who I thought have both been excellent. Brooks has sort of helped take the pressure off DCE, having to do it all in attack, and obviously with Sebojic's injuries as well.
Yeah,
What do you make of those two players and what they brought to the club under Siebes?
yeah. I think Luke, from the opening couple of weeks of pre-season, it was, I think, in a strange way, it was a absolute blessing for us that Tom, unfortunately for him, but he wasn't part of the representative duties at the back end of last year. So Tom was at training, and obviously Tom's an incredibly influential and big part of our footy team. But to have Daly, and Jake Trebojevic away, with their representative duties, allowed Tom and Luke to form this really, tight connection of how they wanted to play, and Tom give Luke, a real understanding of how he liked to play as well. So they had that sort of 6-week block pre-Christmas, building their relationship and combination together. Then all of a sudden, Daly comes in January, and I think I've heard Daly say at different stages through the year that he thought it was going to take a bit of time, understandably, like both guys are in their 30s, coming together, and gelling together. But I think the two of them, but also us as coaches, were blown away with just how quick their chemistry came together. And I think, when we've played our best footy this year, if you look at different sets and different periods of the game, that they're often together, playing on both sides of the field together and linking up and combining. And it's been great to see Luke. Obviously it was a special moment for Luke and his family to be able to play in that final the other day. And talking to him, he absolutely loved it. And Brooksy's had a great year, and it's been great to see him playing with that freedom that he. I think that we all loved over that 11 years at the Tigers. The splashes of those periods in his career where he was able to play with that freedom showed just what a quality player he is, and we've been able to see that consistently at Manly, which has been great because of the leadership of guys like Daly and Tom and Jake and for Tommy Talau, Tommy's another one. Tommy just came clean slate, wanted to train hard and see where it took him. And he came in with a great attitude, had a huge preseason for us, and just absolutely worked his backside off to get into the footy side. And physically, he's great. He's incredibly fit. And he's another one that's had a great season. There's been a number of them, to be honest, that have, had great seasons, and that's what you need. That's what you need to be able to be part of this time of year.
Yeah, and I think there was a few raised eyebrows when Manly signed Luke, because obviously he's a halfback and DCE is not going anywhere from that position. Do you think sort of Seibs has been vindicated, and what do you think he saw in Brooks that made him think that he'd be a good fit with DCE?
I think there's a number of elements to Luke's game. Like he's tough and he's a good ball runner. And I think, that experience that he had, through those 11 years at the Tigers is so valuable. To have that in our footy side is great. And I think, obviously knowing that when you play Luke at 6, and like I mentioned before, you've got so much experience around him in Tom and Daly and Jake that it's not all lumped on him to have to come up with everything, and that's allowed him to pick his moments. And I think we saw from the opening game of the season where he went over and scored that try against South in Las Vegas that the confidence in him straight away, not only in himself as a player, but the players around him and how he could use them. And the combinations that he built over the summer was laid out there in the opening round of the competition, without all that pressure lumped on him, I suppose. Being the 7, and then I think that's probably the best way to answer it is having other experienced leaders around him in key positions have allowed Luke just to get back to, enjoying his footy without all the added pressure of having to be the main man every single week. And his combinations on that left-hand side in particular throughout the season, with, Carl Lawton and Ben Trebojevic and Tommy Trebojevic down that side, and obviously with Tolu and Tommy Talau, he's had some great moments, and it's just been nice to see him play with that freedom, mate.
Yeah, definitely. Mate, conscious of time, but if we could just run through the other game, obviously the Sharks versus the Cowboys.
Yep.
A lot of pressure on Nico Hines. I think Brandy was talking about perhaps even dropping him for this week because Atkinson's been so good. What do you make of sort of that line and obviously Hines under a lot of pressure this week?
Yeah, look, professional sport's brutal. Like the highs are so enjoyable. But like anything at the elite level, it comes with pressure and it comes with challenge. And Nico needs to embrace that this week. I think they have lost 7 straight finals. Cronulla, he knows he's a good player. We've seen him be able to, dominate the week-to-week competition so much so to win a Dally M medal. You don't do that through fluke. So the talent's there. I just think Nico, watching that game the other day, he looked like he was looking for a feel-good moment, early in the game. It was looking for something that made him feel like he was contributing and that he was handling the occasion instead of building his game. And, there's been some commentary this week, in particular from Phil Gould and Andrew Johns, that I thought they just absolutely nailed it with simplicity. Get your defence right, get your kicking game right, get your communication right. And once you get into that cycle in a game as a halfback or hooker in those key positions, your attack tends to find its rhythm, and that's what his side needs from him this weekend. There's no doubt they'll be nervous. There's so much at stake in sudden death, obviously, and they won't want to go bang bang out of the final series again. There'll be a huge sea of Shark supporters there, and it's the opportunity that he's craving, and he's got to look at it like that. But he needs to go out there and strip it back and just get back to those basic fundamentals, do them really well for his footy side in that opening 15 or 20 minutes. And, Nico finds the big plays. He's got that natural talent. He'll find those moments. And, you saw that under, with the limited opportunities they got down at Amy Park the other day, he was able to lay on a try down that right-hand side with Talakai and Sione Katoa. So he finds those moments, but he's just got to get the foundations of his game and do them really well. And I think if he can do that, that'll really settle his footy side, because I think he's the real gauge in that Cronulla side. When he's steady and playing well and steering the side around, there tends to be a real calming influence over the rest of the group. But when he can, get flighty and bounce around and play lateral, then his side can get a little bit jumpy at times.